Okay, well, we're continuing our study here in Colossians, and to a certain degree, I think what's been happening is not a little bit more unusual for our studies, where we usually just go verse by verse. I think we're having a little bit of time to reflect and maybe personally seek the Lord to show us our own hearts as we go through this list of the put-offs in Colossians 3. So I don't mind the discussion. I know typically we don't want to let just discussions run rampant, but I hope that what's happening today is tonight in these studies is some reflection on our own lives. So we talked quite a bit last week in the Colossians 3:8 on the put-off list. The first one was anger. And so we discussed that, and now we're going to move on to the rest of this list: wrath, malice, slander, and obscene talk from your mouth. So, the word for malice there, or wrath there, is the word thumos, and this is more likely what we think of when we think of anger, at least in terms of that burst or that flare of emotion and passion that seems to explode, versus anger, again, has always to do with the judgment, that you're judging something and you want judgment to come upon something. It's maybe a little bit deeper meaning. Wrath here is really more like that hot anger or impulsive outburst. And this is on the no-no list. And again, we talked about how this is not just a list of do's and don'ts, but really the kinds of things that reflect a heart that is rooted in things we have convictions and belief about. So when you have a Christ-honoring heart, then the fruit of that is things like love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. But a heart that has been possessed by sin and evil produces these evil fruits. And Paul is trying to say, you were once this way. And so like these raggedy clothes that you still have clinging to you, even though you have been reborn and remade, and you're pulling them off, you have these attributes that still cling to your heart. And so often we wrestle with. So, wrath, thumos, is on this. And part of the idea here is the lack of control. So I often think of this. Animals have a fairly short pathway between impulse and action. So I'm not saying that animals aren't contemplative or thoughtful, but for the most part, when something happens, right? For example, it's 4th of July, the fireworks are popping. My dog's not a big fan of that, and it will immediately just start, trying to get away, he's outside, trying to get into the house or scratching things. It's just an impulsive reaction, right? And I would say that one of the things that does distinguish, or should distinguish, humanity from the beasts is that we can be animals that are not just purely instinct, not purely just, flight or fight or freeze, that we have this capacity to make real convictional and moral judgments in moments of crisis. Animals, for the most part, they don't sit there and contemplate those things. They're just very reactionary, and maybe reflexive is the right word, the reflexive. Something happens and they just have very quick reflex. This attribute then of wrath is not just the problem with it is not just that there's an outburst of anger. It's the impulsiveness behind it. It's the lack of self-control that says I have to react to this, whatever my inward feeling is. I have to just react impulsively to it. Does that kind of make sense? Again, anger can be a very contemplated, intense, thoughtful, persistent kind of thing. This is just action reaction, and the reaction being something that is hostile, aggressive towards someone else. The Bible does sometimes use this word in terms of God as well. And in a sense, whenever he acts, if this is an anthropomorphism, right? You're giving God human-like attributes. I would never say that God is reacting to something or reflexively acting. It's always proactive, right? Whenever God does anything, I think. So even though when the Bible depicts him as having a wrathful act, it's not impulsive. It's not reflexive. It's not like he couldn't control himself, right? So when we attribute it to God, even if it's an immediate reaction to some evil or sin, we wouldn't say that this is like some wrong impulse. But when it comes to us, because of what is in us is so often sinful or selfish or proud, someone says something insulting, and your immediate reaction might be, if you're a pugilist, is just pop the guy in the mouth. Or your immediate reaction might be to flip the bird. Or your immediate reaction might be to yell, right, immediately in response. That's what we're talking about here. Is that relatable or not to you? Do you see the problem there being not just that you're angry, but that you're letting something immediately provoke a response like an animal? And we are higher than the animals. Does that make sense, or is there any questions about that particular fruit or clothing of the old man?
And just in thought, like when you read the Bible, like the Lord's never really, even when he smites people or when he destroys people, he tells them he's going to do it.
That's true too.
Which is interesting, right? Like if it's like a wrath,
Yeah.
They're going to get worked. So get ready. And I don't think, I just calling, like, I have a fiery temper, and like there's instances where there's not even a thought process. It just goes from one hearing and then reaction.
Yeah.
But I think the Lord is actually, if you look at it, he's pretty judicious. He's telling like his.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And rarely is there not some kind of lead up. We talked last week about his patience. And the point of this is to show that, when it comes to just quick reaction, your reflex, that might be more pure, like true to what's in here, than when you have a second to respond and everything, right? And I think the opposite, and we're not really talking about, say, the opposites of these attributes, but the opposite would be to have a reflex when someone curses you to do what? Bless. That would be a wonderful reflex that would show that would be a very godly heart that when faced with persecution or judgment or hostility would not return it with violence. Who's a good example of that in the Bible? Jesus. Just think all that he endured at the cross, or even on the road to the cross. He was hit and struck, so physically. He was accused and maligned, so that's slander and blasphemy. He was lied about. He was shamed publicly. All these things, and what was his response to any of those? Forgiveness, patience, even mercy. That would be a wonderful reflex to when things happen that make you mad. And maybe in the South, the phrase is bless you. And so, someone cuts you off, bless you, but they're kind of just saying bless you to mean the other thing, but it sounds, but to really mean it, to really mean it. I would give almost anything to have that kind of a reflex. How do you work on that? How do you cultivate an attitude that responds to offense or hurt or pains instead of wrath and retribution with blessing or kindness or even forgiveness? Yeah, I think if you are, your life is hidden with Christ in God, if really the paramount of your thoughts is not about you, but Him, that will change you. That should change you.
Verse 2 tells us, set our mind on things matter.
No? Yeah, set your minds on things above, not on things that are on earth. And chief among the things on earth is is me, to think about how I'm offended or hurt. I was just talking to a pastor friend today, and he said just kind of the values that he looks for in his leadership is to take the word seriously and not take yourself too seriously. And you don't, you can get problems, of course, when you don't take anything seriously, and you can get problems when you take the word seriously and yourself too seriously. I think that's why sometimes the silliest things can happen to you. I do this a lot lately. Just hit my head on stuff, and just humble you, just like that. Like, I still hit my head on things and bonk my head on stuff. How seriously can I take myself? Who do I think I am? I bought my head on my car door. I bought my head on the bunk bed. I bought my head on, the different stuff in my garage. I just, who do I think I am? How can I take myself so seriously? Well, if you want to right-size yourself, you look to Christ. Yeah.
These are all commands. So there's an act of will involved.
Yeah.
The word gives you the awareness, it gives you the standard, it gives you the commitment to the goal, God's purpose. You still have to bring it into your own life and believe it to the point that it actually affects how you choose, the choices you make, and how you behave.
Right. Mm.
I think what you're saying too is that if you're in the Word, there's a prescription for simply give me your anxiety, give it to me, and if there's anything where I try to insert here, I put that in first, because he's just give it to him, and then if you not have anxiety, and then also tying that to your faith, because it will put into question your faith. If you're not doing that, and I just feel like if you read the book, it's almost like it's better than medicine, right?
Oh yeah, that's a good point. That's a good line too. Okay, well, moving on there from anger, wrath, we have malice. Now, I'm just curious, what do you think of when you think of the word malice? Just curious.
Sneaky.
Sneaky?
Ill intent.
Ill intent?
Like picturing it as like a wolf or a tiger, but in the shadows.
Yeah, something dangerous out for you.
It's itself apart from just mere anger or wrath, but malice is like just this sinister.
Yeah, wanting evil for others. Spite. So malice, what's translated malice here, and I wonder if they do this because this word really encompasses all of those thoughts. It's this word that comes from kakos, like K-A-K-O-S. There is a word that we have in English. It's the only one I can think of that actually incorporates this Greek root. It's cacophony. Okay, so cacophony and kakos. It comes from it. So what is cacophony?
It's a reverberation sound.
It's something that sounds bad. I.e., just turn on the radio, almost any music station, and you'll hear cacophony. Let me put it another way. What is a symphony? Symphony, technically, the prefix SYM in English, it just means together. So sounds that are brought together, and the implication is they sound harmonious together, right? There's also a word we don't use as much, which is euphony. E-U-P-H-O-N-Y, euphony. It's the idea of something that sounds good. And E-U in euphony is the Greek word for good, the prefix for good. You. Yes, yeah, euphoria. We have a lot of U words actually in English. So,
Linguistics mean.
yes, yeah. So you're getting the linguistics here. So euphony, and actually, so the opposites are actually euphony and cacophony. something that sounds good together, and something that sounds bad together. Cacophony. So kakos, in its most basic form, just means bad. It could mean bad quality, as opposed to excellent quality, but more often it just means all kind of manner of wickedness and depravity and evil and trouble. Like it's a very broad word. So I think malice, it's too specific in my opinion, but maybe because there's that intent behind it. I think you guys are kind of pointing out the intent part behind it. They use that, but really this is just like everything bad, everything evil, everything that is not honoring to God, is for the worst for others. I think, Bill, you just said, like intending evil for others. That's all bad. It's just funny because it is kind of a broad word, but I think if you put them all away, anger, wrath, badness, maybe wickedness would do it, but that sounds like almost like just moral wickedness. But this is covering everything almost. Just any like bad thought you've had is here. Every bad thing you've done, want to do, that's here. Everything doesn't help but hurts others is here. It's just a very, very broad term for the desire to do something bad. Does that make sense? It's kind of a broad word for it.
That freeway is a cacophony.
Yes, yeah. I cannot think of another word that maybe starts that way besides cacophony. Yeah, a cacodemon. Is that only from a video game, or is that in literature? Is it an actual word? Like cacodemon, like cacophony, C-A-C-O, right? So sometimes this, when you go from Greek to English, you turn the K into a C. So like cacophony is a C, but technically it's K.
Called good spirits, like the angels, like evil demons.
Yeah. You demon and cacodemon. Same idea. You is good, and kakos is bad.
What is that from? A game?
Well, I know that by Doom.
Yeah, there's a video game. But I guess it's a term that predates the video game.
Greek one.
Yeah. Not many words have that in it. But so I bring that up because if you're trying to learn Greek, you got to connect it to something in English, right? So if you're learning the Greek word kakos, and you think cacophony.
But I think that, like, in original Bible, it does not imply intent.
Oh, it does. It's just, this is a very broad term. There are words for like, depravity and evil and wicked. There are other words, but this happens to be a pretty broad word that kind of encompasses all of them. So it's a very generalized term. So malice to me seems very specific, whereas really you're supposed to think of everything bad, unhelpful, depraved, right? Wicked, evil, troublesome. What's the difference? Well, now you're talking about, why do we have multiple words for similar ideas in any language, right? It just, yeah. Why do synonyms exist? It just, there's
Each synonym carries like
different shades of meaning. Yeah. I think in the context of this list, I think it is trying to get at just a general bad intent to do bad, any kind of bad.
What does the Greek one say?
The kakos or kakia, which comes from kakos.
Does that imply intent as well? Or does the whole sentence imply intent?
I don't think intent. You mean towards another person?
Intent, you can be chaotically bad.
Right. No, it's intentional. This is intentional. Yeah. Let's hear. In
Just like you said the difference between wrath and anger.
so here, this answers your question. Acts 8:22. Okay, so it's the early church, and the gospel is being preached, and verse 22. I think it's Peter. Peter says, repent therefore of this wickedness of yours. Same word. Kakia, yeah. Repent of this wickedness of yours and pray to the Lord that if possible the intent of your heart may be forgiven you. The intent of your heart. Now what's the wickedness that this man was doing? He's telling someone, repent. You know what this guy was doing? This was the guy in Acts 8 who tried to give money to the apostles so that he could have the power of the Holy Spirit. You remember that? So he says, give me this power also so that anyone on whom I lay my hands may receive the Holy Spirit. Remember that? This is not wickedness like he was trying to, murder someone. This is a wickedness of thinking that the power of the Holy Spirit is something you can buy and sell and just, wield. So, that's not, you probably wouldn't think of that as a top of your list of what's wicked, but yeah, malice would be a weird translation, right? So it goes with wickedness. Maybe depravity would have worked, but this is like just a ungodly thought. It's just like an offensive to God thought that you would think you can just buy this power. So
it's also maybe like this is kind of this animalistic kind of trait.
Animalistic?
Without like second thought.
Yeah. Well, out of his desire for power, he's like, can I buy it? And he's maybe the type of guy that thinks you can buy anything. Yeah.
I thought of another word used, cacophony,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not in English. It's the Spanish word caca.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's got to be the root.
Yeah. I don't know what the etymology is of caca, but I wouldn't be surprised. I guess I guess I wouldn't be surprised if that were the case.
When I think of cacophony, I think of an orchestra. Before they have their performance, they tune up, and you have.
Yes. Yeah.
I always think of that.
Yeah.
So then, like, the
And
cacophony,
then-
right?
and then
That would be like
when
an
there's a
antonym
master-
of symphony, right?
Mm.
Yeah, that's what I think of.
When there's a maestro who knows how to control it.
Yeah.
it becomes a
Yeah.
symphony.
So symphony literally is just, together sounds. Like phonos or phoneo is to sound something.
Cacophony would be like the antonym
Yeah.
of that word.
Yeah.
In modern English, yeah, euphony would be more technically the antonym, but in our minds, a symphony now carries the connotation of something that sounds beautiful, symphonic, and so it functionally, yes, I guess I'll put it that way.
It's been good to us.
Yeah, that's true. Now, again, as an attribute of the old man, you might say, or as a part of us that still clings to us, you just have to ask a question of your own heart. Do I ever want to do something bad? Just something stupid bad, even. And I still, to this day, I guess there's times where you get a desire and you just have a really bad idea for something, and hopefully by the grace of God, you have the wherewithal to say, that's a really bad thing that I just wanted there, and to, by the power of the Holy Spirit, put to death that deed of the flesh. But I still have just random thoughts sometimes, just something really bad, dumb and bad, bad, like regular bad, just downright wicked. And yet the grace of God is I can recognize it as such. That was a bad thought. And Lord, I want every thought to be held captive to the obedience of Christ. And so, Lord, I give that thought to you, and where that comes from is some unmet desire, some selfishness, some greed or pride. God, arrest that thought in my heart. Take it captive, because it's coming from somewhere. That bad thought is coming from somewhere. So I don't think the prayer should be, God, don't let me think that bad thought anymore. It's, God, help me to know where that bad thought came from so I can expose that to the light of Christ. And if it's because of some deficiency in a relationship, or if it's a desire for something I don't want, help me to desire you more. Like, it has to come back to Christ, not just, God, oh, please take this desire away from me. I think he frankly, rarely answers a prayer like that. Not that he can't, but that his desire is not just to prune all of your bad thoughts from you and so that you never have to deal with the bad thought. I think he wants to show us what is it that we want so badly, and how is that reflecting a lack of trust in the Lord, or obedience to the Lord, or love for the Lord, etc. So every bad thought, they come from somewhere. They come from some place. So, any questions or any more to say about kakia or kakos? Okay. A slander. And that is the word blasphemy in English. Now, blasphemy, we tend to think of a religious context. In other words, that blasphemy is something you do against God only. But the term blasphemy, it is a legal term. It is to say something untrue about someone else. That's slander. When you say something untrue or accuse someone of something untrue. And so this obviously has to do with our words, and the next two have to do with words, or the first three are kind of attitudes. And I think it's very telling, actually the next three, it's three attitudes or dispositions: internal, anger, wrath, malice. The next three are stuff that comes out of our mouth: slander, obscene talk, and lying, right? Slander is one that we dare not think is only relegated to the realm of like religious talk. Well, I don't use the Lord's name in vain, so I don't blaspheme. No, anytime you say something untrue about someone or accuse someone of something that they didn't do, you're slandering. Or something they aren't, you're slandering. And by that definition, I'd wonder if we don't do that almost every day. Well, again, you guys are maybe more holy than I, and not that we always intend it to be that way, but slander doesn't even have to necessarily have an ill intent. That's just often the case of it. But to say someone is something that they're not, or to use your words otherwise to accuse or blame when they don't really deserve it, and you start thinking of that as slander, well, that happens probably a lot more than we like to think. It's very, think about it this way. How much do you want to take responsibility for your own actions? So anytime you've ever made an excuse blaming someone else for something, that gets into blasphemy territory. It gets into slander territory. It's their fault and not mine. They did it, not me. It's because of you did this. Using your words to paint a picture of someone else's guilt or wrongdoing or sinfulness, slander. And so often is in the context of saving ourselves or absolving ourselves or removing accountability from ourselves. So when you think back now to the religious understanding, why do we blaspheme God? Or how do we blaspheme God? It's not just when, I will say this, it's probably, hold on, let me take a minute before I say that. We often think, don't take the name of the Lord your God or Yahweh your God in vain to mean don't say Jesus or God when you stub your toe. Don't, when something bad happens, use God's name. Don't use God's name as a cuss word. Now, those are all very valid ways to abuse and misuse the name of God. But in the context of Exodus 20, the idea was more like, you Israelites represent me. Wherever you go, you carry my name as children of Yahweh. Wherever you go, don't do anything that would besmirch my name or make me out to be someone I am not. So if you go and you go sin it up, you are, in a sense, blaspheming God, because you're saying God is okay with this, right? With your actions, you're saying God is okay with this when he's not. That's slander, right? That's blasphemy, because you're saying God is okay with something that he's not. That's actually more the context of not using the names or invoking the Yahweh's name in vain. It's attributing his name to things that are not, should not be attributable to him. It's not, I'm not saying, okay, just start, using his name every time you want to swear something at all. But it is when you are attributing to God things that are not God. And we can do that by our actions, not just by our words. And maybe even more so, that's the implication for the Israelites. But you understand, these people would worship to Yahweh, and then next to it would be an altar to another god, and then they would worship that god. Well, they're blaspheming the name of God in the sense that God says, I alone am worthy of your worship. And when you worship him, presumably you're saying, Yahweh, you're the only one I can worship. But if you go turn around and worship another god right after, you've just said that, either you're lying about your worship of God or that God is okay. He was just kidding when he said, you shall have no other gods before me. So that's why that is also blasphemy. To attribute to God things that are not true of him, that would be blasphemy as well. And so we ought not to do that to God, but this is not just talking about to God. This is talking about to other people, attributing to others what is not true of them, accusing of things that they did not do. When we think of it that way, saying things of others, that aren't true, I think I just said that. That's when you're in blasphemy territory. And again, that's probably something we can slide into very, very subtly, especially when we're trying to get ourselves off the hook for something. So any questions or comments?
In Greek, it says blasphemy when religious.
Wait, say it again?
In Greek, like in the original Bible, does it say more like blasphemy? Because slander to me sounds a lot like just legalistic.
Yeah.
More like legal, more like commoner.
Yeah.
Kind of when you when you slander your
Yeah.
neighbor or something.
Yeah. Like in court, if you were to give like
Yeah, so in this passage, does it refer to like blasphemy more or more like common slander?
It's almost certainly not talking just about like limited to a legal context. This is just talking about when you are talking trash about people, saying that they did things they did not do, or attributing to them things that are not true.
So does it also include blasphemy as talking slander to God?
Yeah, I think so. But the reason I think there's maybe an others-centeredness to it is because most of these seem to be talking not necessarily about anger or wrath or malice towards God, but towards each other. So whereas, of course, the New Testament certainly does not recommend you blaspheme God, I think here in the context is mainly talking about each other, interpersonal relationships. Yeah.
Is slanted in the same root word as slander?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. In English, you mean?
It's not blasphemy, but I find in relationships, people often will attribute a slanted view
Yes.
of a person's
Yeah.
background or whatever their...
It's a subtle way of slandering someone. Yeah.
And then it takes away from the value of whatever
Yeah.
happened,
Yeah.
or it adds something negative to it.
Yeah.
And I find that happens more, especially among people who want to act like everything's good.
Yeah.
They're diminishing.
Yeah. So I think the answer, that might be true. We can look up the etymology of slant and slander and see where some of the roots may lie. And you might be right about that. But I think almost universally, a lot of, and this I guess ties into not lying to one another, but the antidote to it is just to be consistently truthful. which can be hard, especially since, if I use hyperbolic language, it's 1,000,000 degrees tonight. You guys know by context it wasn't 1,000,000 degrees. But I think we can maybe sometimes give too much of a pass to the language that we use. Often if people get too used to you speaking in hyperbole like that, they may not take you seriously. And I think the antidote is just to make sure, even in the little things, to make sure you're being honest. So if someone asks you, how tall you are, it's like, I'm 5'10" and a half. But I feel like I could easily round that to 5'11". Or you know what? At that point, you're basically 6 feet. So just tell them 6 feet or something. Maybe to care about, just tell them the absolute truth as much and as best as you can. How is that not a good policy to have? And so when someone tells you or asks you about someone, just being honest about that. Your role, especially when it comes. Maybe let me take a step back. The number one thing you must always be most honest about is yourself to other people, as best as you can. And if you don't know what someone else felt or thought, this is where slander can come in easily, is when you assume motive, assume a thought of someone else and then communicate that to others. Don't say it. Unless you are speaking verbatim what that person said in the context, maybe it's best not to try and attribute, motive, ideas, and thoughts to someone. But when it comes to yourself, when people ask and you can give them an honest answer, practice giving an honest answer. I think in that way we can cultivate a lot healthier speech amongst ourselves and with each other. Slander, again, so often we do that when we try to make someone else bad, to make ourselves look good, to be petty because we want ourselves to look better than the other person. We want to absolve ourselves of responsibility, make it someone else's fault, someone else's problem. And just be honest with yourself and be honest about yourself to other people. And I can't imagine some of that slander at least would just go away just because you're taking responsibility for yourself. Anyway.
Use for commentary on everything you just said.
No. Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouth, that one, or just in general?
You can grow up by speaking truth in love.
Yeah, that's right. Being built up, speaking truth in love, yeah.
It's like telling you're 6 feet approximately. Is
Sure, yeah.
Because you gotta say 5 feet and 10.5 inches instead of just 6 feet.
You know what I started telling people?
It's too
I just tell people 5'10", because I figure I probably shortened up. I'm going to be probably closer to 5'10" by the end of my life. That's what I'm saying. So I've actually taken it just tell people when I fill out forms, I just put 5'10". That's why. Yeah, that's bare feet. Okay, in all honesty, I didn't measure it myself at the doctor's office, and calculating it 180 centimeters almost exactly. I mean, that's probably closer to 5'11" than 5'10" anyway, but I just felt funny about it. So many people lie about their height, really, right? And their weight. Why?
I understand why are you guys so hung up with that? Girls don't do that.
About their height?
No.
But we
And
don't
we don't ask each other our weight.
I am not gonna. I'm gonna stop right there. See, I didn't use that as an example for a reason. I did not use that as an example for a reason.
The girls love each other because, you're older.
I don't talk my way.
Or what size,
Or age, or
age.
dress sizes, or anything. I know.
It's a girl.
It's hard to express Language is very inaccurate.
Language can be inaccurate. That's true. And that's why, and I'm not trying to say be a stickler. Like, yeah, I'm about 6 feet tall. Like, that's fine. But I'm just saying in terms of the mental habit, is like, be honest, be truthful, even about the little things. If you get an approximation, say it, of course. But I do think lying is one of those things you can easily get in the habit of it. I mean, we're going to talk about lying in just a second. But in the context of slander, there's this attitude of like, you're using your words to bring other people down, typically. And so often it's to make yourself look better.
That's malicious right there, right?
Well, I mean, you look at any of these reality talk shows, you know what makes them interesting? Is the slander. The scandalous stuff too, I guess. I don't watch a lot of reality TV, but so often it's like, you watch it for the slander. Anyway, yeah. Like, I don't watch them, right? Like, okay, so, but like, from...
No,
I mean, like these, like The Bachelorette, or I don't know, whatever, these, reality TV shows, like... I've never seen an episode of Love Island, I'm happy to say, but I get the impression, so maybe I'm wrong, someone can correct me if they watch these, I get the impression half the fun is just seeing people tear each other up with their words, I think. Could be wrong about that. But it's like literally making an entertainment out of slander. What a sad state.
Watch that kind of stuff, it's increasing the meanness.
Probably. Yeah. When you marinate in it, yeah.
We should also include gossiping.
Yes, so gossip, and that is also in the Bible, it's not here. There's a little bit of nuance to gossip, which involves sharing things, even truthful things, behind someone else's back for their hurt. So slander has the idea of these are not true things, right?
More public.
Slander? Yeah. It's stuff you're using your words to attribute to someone things that are not true. Right. Or even privately, but that's the point. Gossip, it can be, there's some overlap with slander, but gossip can be true things that you know about someone that you're communicating to other people that you ought not. And oftentimes there's an intent behind that too. Any case, it's not on this list, that's a whole nother can of worms, but obscene talk. Now this one is a little bit harder to maybe pin down a bit. There's a companion verse here in Ephesians. Where am I here? Ephesians 5:12. No, that's not the one I was thinking of. Ephesians 5:4. Let there be no filthiness, nor foolish talk, nor crude joking. And I believe the crude joking there is also this obscene talk. Let me make sure. Oh, no. It's the first one. Filthiness. So, I think because of that, in any case, looking at verse Ephesians 5:4, let there be no filthiness, nor foolish talk, nor crude joking, which are out of place. And then here in Colossians, obscene talk from your mouth, and there are overlaps of those word groups. We tend to think this is talking about dirty jokes. So, when you join the military, an army or Marines or anything, you learn a second language if you don't know one, and it's the language of just dirty jokes. It's like a whole nother vocabulary of people and, just talking about, yeah, you're like, I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah. You've got, half this room is vets, right? What are you talking about? I don't know what you're saying. It's just like, crude, jokes and things like that. And so I don't know, whenever I heard these verses, this is like no dirty jokes kind of thing as the application. And I do think that's included in this, but really the root of this word too is shame and disgrace and like base, just like, yeah. Not quite cynicism, but just like low-level humor. Now, I wrestle this a little bit because kids, they love fart and poop jokes. So is this talking necessarily about like, those kinds of silly jokes? And I don't think that's the intent of this. Because in the context of, joking with kids or even your buddies about, those kinds of things, I don't think that's what the intent of this is to shut down all, maybe it is, poop and fart jokes with your kids. That cuts down my repertoire a lot if I can't do those with the kids, right?
Here's your point a while ago. There's a whole category, I want to talk of conversation, where you use ordinary words, which you cast a shadow on. So they carry a completely different meaning and are suggestive, involuntary mood, lascivious. It's not just to use the bad, dirty.
Right. So I think a better example than say, those like, dirty jokes. Of course, like sexual jokes, the reason that would be lumped in this is because it would be disgraceful, just to be kind of crude, like you ought not to just have sex in front of people, right? So that's something that is to be reserved for the marriage bed. So to talk very sexually and make a lot of sexual jokes in public is to bring something that is supposed to be enjoyed and desired and celebrated, in the context of man and a woman in a loving, committed marriage, in a covenant marriage, and to parade that and demean God's good gift of marriage, that is being disgraceful. That is bringing something that is supposed to be done and enjoyed, an exclusive thing here, and just parading it out. Another kind of joke, really, that I think would disqualify under this, that is not necessarily crude or bad, considered like a dirty joke, is any of those jokes that are at the expense of your wife. Like the old battle axe kind of humor and, anything that seems to demean marriage. So we think very oftentimes of these verses, sexual jokes, but I think this would include anything that God has made good, and turning it into spectacle, or taking anything that is sinful and making it sound like we have no shame about it, just no shame about it. So I actually cringe when people tell those kinds of like jokes that are at the expense of wives and women, because I think that is what we're talking about here, that is trying to bring shame where God has said this is glory, or trying to glorify things that God has said is shameful. Maybe that's a good way to put it. So does that kind of make sense? I mean, I don't need to give every category of dirty joke or everything, but it is just anything that upends what God has called good, calling it evil, and making fun of it, and anything God calls evil, calling it good, and making fun of that. It's so. In other words, it's maybe not just about using curse words or swear words that would make it qualify as this. Because I know also Ephesians 4:29, do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what's helpful for building others up. And sometimes some people mean by that, there's absolutely no context for using one of the four-letter bad words. Don't need to get into a whole big thing about, four-letter bad words and swear words. As a linguist, I'm a full believer in words have meaning in context. So there's no such thing as like a forbidden word. There's no such thing. Words have meaning in their context, and that's what makes them, good or bad. And frankly, words and meanings words change meaning over time. And so there's some words that might have been highly offensive 30 years ago, 50 years ago, that aren't people use casually now. I'm not saying that's good or bad, it's just language changes and evolves. But if something is means something in a context that is not encouraging, then you probably don't say it. I guess one example that I think of is, I think I have this right. Aaron Valdezan, if you remember him, his grandfather fought in World War II. He was a Christian. He didn't swear unless it was something very serious. So if, he's in World War II, if he swore at his troops, they knew this is serious, because he rarely ever swore that they ever heard. I personally, again, don't think in the Bible there's a list of words you say and don't say. There's just words, and they have their meaning in their context. I don't necessarily think it's inherently sinful to say those words, but I think if you're in a room full of 3 or 4-year-olds, and just the way the context and language is, if you use one of those words in front of them, that's not appropriate. But maybe there's a certain amount of appropriateness when you're in another context. That's just the nature of words. They have meanings in context, and that's where they derive their meaning. That's just how words work. So we're not talking here, obscene talk, about a list of naughty words and not naughty words. That's not the heart behind it. It is, again, to bring disgraceful things up, or to make a disgrace of things that should be hallowed. Wait, I'm sorry? Gaslighting? So that is when you basically try to convince or shame someone into believing something that is not true, typically about themselves, or yeah. It would be like a husband telling their wife, "This is all your fault. I could have been, a race car driver, but because of you, this and that and the other thing," and then you're trying to gaslight them. I forgot the origin of it, but no, I'm talking about the lamp over there, the actual gaslight. Yeah. That's a good one. I think that might fall under Ephesians 4:29 more. Again, do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths. Might be a little bit of slander too in there.
Gaslighting is what? Is making somebody look bad?
It's
dimming the light and not acknowledging that something has changed is what gaslighting is. It's realizing, somebody realizes that something has changed or something isn't what it should be, but the other person chooses not to acknowledge it, or it diminishes the fact that something,
It's manipulation.
It's an interpersonal, psychological.
Yeah, there's actually a lot of things. It's a much broader definition now, so there's lots of meanings to it. But a simple form is in a relationship when someone's basically saying, "You're imagining all this. You're crazy. You're the problem," and basically using an overwhelming amount of words and manipulations to convince someone that of a different reality almost.
They're crazy.
Yeah, that this is all your fault. Yeah,
I always say 50-50. And it's usually over something stupid, like you got the wrong plant or something.
And so here's the thing.
It's always
The problem when
marriage, pretty much.
the problem is when that happens in marriage is you guys are one flesh. So you cannot put the other person down without also bringing yourself down. It makes no sense. So if you're one flesh, you have every incentive to, you're on the same team. If it happens to you, it happens to me. You just have no incentive to like, you're, no.
Everybody's cheating on the other person. In everyday things when you're.
So therefore, then fights, right, in a marriage are good for nobody,
Wait, what?
essentially.
What'd you say?
So then therefore, like what you said, fights in a marriage are good for nobody.
No, you're on the same team. So people think like fighting, in marriage, fighting, if you have the sense of fighting, like there has to be a winner and there has to be a loser in this. You're on the same team. You either win together or you lose together, but there's no winner and loser. There's just, you know what I mean? Like, you're on the same team. You don't think like that. If we're on the same team, I don't say, I'm going to win and you're going to lose. It doesn't make any sense. We're on the same team.
Sorry, mom and dad, but I would always hear, from, I won't say, one party would say, that I could never, I was never as fast, or I could never follow, or they are always right, or they're always, wrong.
Yeah.
There's something, going on.
There's not always a winner and a
But
loser.
I feel the effects of that because I'm the child of this, of these parents, right?
Mhm.
And my siblings feel the effects of what happened, what transpired, so yeah, there are no winners.
No, it's a very bad thought if you come into marriage and interpersonal, conflict as they happen, as there must be a winner and there must be a loser to this fight. No, you're on the same team. That doesn't make sense. You can both lose if you're opposed to God,
But I think, it's a prevalent thing now, right? Like these tactics are normalized, right? Like
It
gaslighting.
seems to be reaching.
Which makes marriage even more difficult, and the concept of marriage is also in itself so obscured now, right? Like you have to have an independent thought frame, you drive the bus.
So, yeah. So,
Yeah, but we're both believers, so.
But yeah, but-
49ers as believers, that's different when you marry an unbeliever.
Yeah.
You kind of have to be the giver as the believer, right, to bring the other unbeliever around.
But the independent mind is so normalized, right? Like, we talk about free will and gaslighting and like, well, I'm just telling you a different version of the truth.
I don't know.
it's kind of a complicated thing now because it's becoming.
Fury. I mean, you are a team. At the end of like fighting, you bought the wrong plant or the pictures had more, it's usually stupid
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
It's not usually that important because you're both in the Word all the time. So you just want your own way at that point, whatever it is.
Being 49 years and then also being in a
In
Christian.
the Word, you have
Yeah,
to
in the
Word,
Word.
you're not going to
Do you
survive.
notice the difference amongst your friends that aren't believers? Like, have you?
Actually, I find unbelievers easier to deal.
we're getting into a sidetrack here.
Best friends, both Debbie and Debbie Smith. I get along beautifully. We laugh for 8 hours straight when we're together. But unbelievers have that. They don't have that legalistic edge, And people will say, like my best friend, I swim with her like for 37 years, and she's like, "You're the only Christian I know that's not a hypocrite." I go, "Oh, thanks."
Just got gaslit.
Don't live with this list of rules, and
Well,
you don't tell them that they're doing something wrong and they're doing something right. You're just, it's like you're a witness all the time.
some unbelievers are very non-judgmental because they don't want you to judge them, right? Because they're not living accordingly. And some unbelievers are very judgmental just because, hey, we're judgmental people. But
I find that my unbelieving friends, they don't have the benchmark that I have, and over the years, it's harder and harder
yeah,
to them at all.
But I
Well,
find that
well,
sometimes believers, are so, some of them are easy if they're in the Word, but if they're not, in the Word, but they're believers, I have a brother that's a Christian, that's not, has been in the Word for years.
it's kind of you take the word seriously. Don't take yourself so seriously thing. Let's do this last one.
That's the answer to marriage,
yeah.
because you won't survive.
Let's get to this last one. In verse 9 it says, "Do not lie to one another, seeing that you have put off the old self with its practices and put on the new self." And it's interesting because verse 8 says, "Now you must put them all away." Right? And he gives a list of nouns, like put these things away. And it's, if you care, it's in the aorist in verse 8, but now you must put them all away. It's in the aorist imperative. So it's a command. But in verse 9, this one is in the, it's in the present tense. It's like, it's almost like, now stop lying to each other, as if they're actively still doing it. It's just different than the other ones, right? This one, it's not a noun like a list. Put these away. Oh, put away lying. There's a noun for lying. But instead he switches to present tense, stop lying to each other, seeing that you have put off the old self with its practices. In other words, it for some reason is getting special treatment. And I think perhaps some of that is because out of all of these things, the one thing that it's just very easy to do, as much as you might love someone, as much as you might know the Lord, is to lie about little things. Lie, there's lies of commission, lies of omission. I mean, this is a very big subject, the subject of lying. This is not just talking about not lying under oath in a legal context, although that, of course, is sort of the case in terms of bearing false witness. Like, that's kind of technical language in Exodus 20. It's like when there's stakes to you lying, there's consequences to you lying, is the idea behind that. Bearing false witness is you are saying, I will stand by this statement, and if this statement brings a judgment against someone else, I stand on it. And are you willing to have that kind of attitude about the things that you're saying, that you're willing that someone would live or die by the truthfulness of your words? So, bearing false witness is kind of a technical, almost like legally kind of sounding, right? Do not bear false witness. But the premise behind lying, or maybe the heart of it, is realize that it doesn't matter what you say, that people will get hurt. There's consequences to the truthfulness of the things you say. People's livelihood depends on the things you say. If you're, in the workplace, like, I constantly, one of the brothers here, you know him, he's always wrestling with, my work wants me to lie about the stock that we have in store, or the inventory, about our policies. Should I lie about that? People's livelihoods. Are you willing to have what your words stand up in court and be used to bring a judgment or penalty against someone else? Are you willing to stand behind everything you said today, that they were so truthful and honest that you could measure each one and there would be no dross, no imperfection in it? And that's the standard, is we want to be as best as possible. I get it. Sometimes you didn't know, so you accidentally communicated something untrue. It's still a lie. God still forgives by His grace. But are we letting ourselves get away with the little lies, with the lies of omission, not inserting the truth when it would change an outcome? Just, I don't necessarily mean to berate this too much, and actually Jerry Bridges, his book, Respectable Sins, is a pretty good section on the kinds of lies that we kind of give a pass to. Again, just think, am I willing that someone would live or die, by this? Or that there would be real consequences to this? In other words, so often you get away with the lie, there's no consequence for it, and that's why you're like, maybe it's okay. But if God is counting all of them in heaven, and there must be a judgment against them, are you willing to bear up under that, or to see each lie have to be paid for, in the blood of Christ? I guess the thing I was mentioning about, 5'10", 5'11", or whatever. What if it matters? What if the half-inch matters? What if that makes a difference between getting the right treatment and the wrong treatment? Would I be willing to risk, like, my son's life with that? What if his life is on the line about whether I lied about 5'10 and a half or 5'11. Well, when you start putting some stakes to it, you realize, maybe I wouldn't do it. But there are stakes. God says he will hold every word liable. So, in all of these things, all these different, negative, past put off self things here, I do want to communicate, God is very gracious too. He knows you're like this. Jesus still died for those sins. Jesus died for sins you haven't committed yet. That is such an amazing thought. He knew the sins you were going to commit, and he said, you know what? I'm still going to die for them. That's a tremendous kind of statement to make. And I think for those of you with children, you kind of know a little bit of what that is like. I tell my kids all the time, there's nothing you could do that would make me not love you. It doesn't mean there's not things you could do that wouldn't hurt me tremendously, or that would cause you so much horror and pain and suffering that would cause me horror and pain and suffering to see you go through. But there's nothing, practically before you were even born. I loved you that much. Well, I didn't have to pay for that love with my life or in blood. But that is what Christ did. It wasn't just a statement, I love you no matter what. He assured us of that. He proved that to us by dying on the cross for our sins. So if you find that any of these things happen to be still clinging to you today or yesterday or tomorrow, I want to give you the hope and the promise that if we confess our sins, he is faithful and just to forgive us our sins and cleanse us from all unrighteousness. You can still go to him. When you do something bad and you go to God, you're not telling him anything new, right? He just wants you to come and acknowledge it. The price has already been paid, but it is meaningful to you and to God, really, he's a person, to come and acknowledge that. There's a dynamic, there's a relationship still there, nevertheless, I wouldn't want my kids to presume that I'm going to love on them and therefore do every wicked, horrible thing, even though I know I will. It'd be blasphemy in a way to my relationship to him to impose on my love by just doing every horrific thing possible just to, and say, oh, but I know my dad will love me still. So that's a little bit of an analogy from parenting, but in any case, any last questions or comments about this? We'll go on to the good list next time. Yes, sir. Colossians 3:9, yes.
Do not lie to one another. Is that what we were just discussing?
Yeah.
And then it goes like, seeing that you have put on yourself is right. So how is it related?
Mm-hmm. So the put off the old self with its practices is how that verse began. But now you must put them all away. So it's the same kind of verbiage of taking off or be done with this life that you used to live. So, this is a very mixed word picture, but as a Christian, you are born again, right? And yet, you've been born again, but the clothes of your old life are still clinging to you. And if you imagine sin as being filth and disgusting things you used to wallow in when you're an unbeliever and all your clothes are still stained like that, God is saying that the Christian life is a process of taking off those old, disgusting garments. And then next week, not next week, I'll talk about it in a second. Putting on then, in verse 12, as God's chosen ones, holy and beloved, compassionate hearts, kindness, humility, meekness. Then there's going to be a list of things to put on. So you're born again, but unlike babies that are born naked, you're born again and you're still kind of wearing the clothes of your past life. There's consequences to things you've done. There's, sins and all. You've been in the world for as long as however you were until you became a Christian. And those have, stained you like clothes that you're wearing. So you've been inside born again, the person, but you're being told, it's just a word picture, take off the old clothes while you're still wearing them.
How does it relate to lying? It's like in the 9th passage, it says, like, another sin that you have put off.
Yeah. In a way, it's summarizing the whole list. Like all of these things, you're putting them off. So it's using this last one as a jumping off point, but you could very well say, with its practices, is talking about the anger, wrath, malice, slander, obscene talk, and other things, right? There's a whole another list. You could make a very long list of all the bad stuff you used to do and be. But all of those, put them off and put on the new self.
Yeah, but what's with lying?
What's with lying in particular?
Yeah, why is that? Like,
So I think it's he gives particular attention to it because, a couple ways you could look at it is maybe the Colossians, that was a particular problem because, again, he's using the present tense imperative there in verse 9. So it seems like emphatic.
lying, like, do not lie to one another is outside this list with anger, malice, and everything. It's like a different thing. It's not like, in a way, but it's like a different sentence, and it's like this clause with sin that you have put off the old self is kind of clarifying. The meaning of do not lie to one another. I'm just wondering, like in the original Bible, how is that put together?
Well, that's why I think, it could be a stylistic choice if you want to get down to the nitty-gritties, but if he's talking about the old self, that is putting off the old self, that does bring us back to verse 8, but now you must put them all away. So he is summing up. He's using that last one about not lying to each other to sum up. You've put them all away now with its practices, all those things, and you must now put on the new man. The parallel is in Ephesians 4. He says in verse 22, we start in verse 20. So Ephesians 4:20 and on, it's a parallel. Colossians and Ephesians have a lot of overlap. So Philippians 4:20 says, "But that is not the way you learn Christ, assuming that you have heard about him and were taught in him, as the truth is in Jesus, to put off your old self, which belongs to your former manner of life and is corrupt through deceitful desires, and to be renewed in the spirit of your minds, and to put on the new self, created after the likeness of God in true righteousness and holiness." And the first thing he says, "Therefore, having put away falsehood, let each one of you speak the truth with his neighbor, for we are members of one of another." So the first one in his list in Ephesians to put off and put on is falsehood. Put off falsehood, put on speaking the truth. So it's just a same vibe. Put off, put on. Here he's going to do put off falsehood, put on truth. Put off anger, put on reconciliation. Put off stealing, put on working hard. So in one verse, each verse, it's put off, put on. In Colossians, though, he says put off, put off, put off, put off, put off, put off, and then he will do put on, put on, put on, put on. So just same idea, different pattern, but they are to be thought of as together. The put off stuff is the bad stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting with this falsehood, the word itself, falsehood there, and do not lie to each other.
Yeah.
This is like, it looks like it's more, like lying is like what encompasses all of this stuff. Or you can just lie about putting off wrath, anger, and malice. But if you're lying about it, then it makes like no difference.
Yeah, I do think that lying is probably, out of this list, lying is the one that is most subtle and persistent because of how easy it is to lie and get away with it. Explosions of anger, you see that. Doing bad stuff, kind of obvious. You talk slanderously or obscenely, it's just right there.
You
Yeah.
don't even know if you're lying.
Yeah.
Some people might not even know.
I have known, I'll just end with this. I have met some people that are such liars, I don't think they realize it anymore. I don't know if you've met anyone like that, but in counseling and just, people in the church have come through the church that I'm convinced they don't think they're lying anymore. That they're so, they've been so saturated in their own lives and their own deceptions that they believe it, truly. It's a scary thing. So they will come to you and they just sound like they're telling the truth, but everything they say is a lie. I don't know if you've met people like that, you'll know what I'm talking about, but I've met too many. It's like, how can this person see reality? It's like they see reality totally different.
It's a psychopath thing for sure.
Well, yeah. I think...
It's very easy to form that kind of habit, that habitual lying and deceit perception.
And I've told you guys, I've said it before, like, lying is so exhausting.
These guys on TV.
Yeah, you got to keep track of who you lied to, about what, and all this stuff. You know, honesty is the best policy. It's true.
You do, because if there's people like that in your life, for example, you work with them or something,
Yeah.
and you know they're lying, they've told you one thing one week and the next week they're saying something
Yeah.
else. And if you try to call them on it, and I feel just like talking to them, I become complicit in their
Yeah.
lying world
Yeah.
about what they actually had said or not. So
They're just, are they believers? Are they
It's almost scary to deal with people like that.
some people like that.
It is almost scary to people that don't believe they have an addiction. People, or whatever, like people.
And when you call them on it.
Yeah.
I can't call them on it.
I think it depends on the relationship that you have with them. Of course, if it's your spouse, there's one dynamic. If it's your child, another dynamic. If it's your neighbor, friend, acquaintance, church member, there's different dynamics. If someone was here to be found consistently, obviously lying, we would have to pursue a process of church discipline, each step. What if it's your governor? Let's pray. You pray for them. I think prayer is not the last thing you do for anyone. It should be the first thing you do for anyone. So I don't mean to say that. I say it as a little bit of a joke, but no, let's believe in the power of prayer to change a heart. Because if you cannot show it to them, God's got to show it to them. And God uses our prayers as a means somehow. The sovereign God, He uses our prayers somehow, to affect things. So He's sovereign. He doesn't need our prayers, but He's ordained to use them. You got to believe in the power of prayer. So we pray.
But it's so prevalent in politics, and now with our computers, you go, wait, you said this 10 years ago on camera.
Yeah.
I mean, who cares? Because Jesus Christ controls history.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Sorry.
in the end, we could go on with that.
Yeah.
You don't want to lose the focus of the passage, though. The focus of the passage is on my behavior.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Not other people.
Not a checklist I should use when I.
Yeah. It's you. You meaning, you, you, but, me. By you, he means me, Yeah, exactly. All right. Let's pray.